I'm sure I'm not the only one who's heard of a place like this. To be honest, I think every town has one, a house that everyone knows, but no one talks about. Maybe it's a mansion, maybe it's just an old building, but there's always that one structure that people avoid. If you're familiar with what I mean, then you know the type of place I'm talking about. It's the one that's been abandoned for as long as anyone can remember. No one goes near it. No one dares to buy it. And even if someone did, they'd probably change their mind within days. The lawn is overrun with weeds, and there's usually broken furniture or trash scattered around. If there's a tree, it's either decayed or completely dead. Every now and then, a strange smell drifts through the air, and it doesn't seem to belong anywhere. The house I'm referring to is at the very end of the street where I grew up. It's a crumbling wreck, and it definitely looks haunted. I've lived in this neighborhood for decades, and I'm not sure why anyone would ever try to fix it. The only time anyone paid attention to the place was when the city came by to trim the bushes that had grown over the sidewalk. They cleaned it up a little, but it didn't help much. It's still just a sad, dilapidated mess. When I was a kid, my friends and I would challenge each other to sneak into the yard. We dare each other to hop the fence, run around the lawn, and see who could make it the farthest. It was a childish game, and I can only remember one time when anyone actually went through with it. A kid named Max, who was a couple of years younger than the rest of us, and always trying to fit in, climbed over the rusted fence and ran to the front door. He tripped, scraped his knee, and came back crying. At first, we laughed, but when we saw his leg, we grew quiet. It wasn't just a scrape, it looked infected. His skin was swollen, with these strange bubbles forming around the wound. Max was never seen with us again after that. In fact, none of us went near the house after that. The next time I ran into Max was months later, when I saw him out shopping with his mom. He looked different. He was pale and thin, almost sickly. It was like something had drained the life out of him. I didn't see him again after that, but it didn't really surprise me. People come and go in small towns all the time. It wasn't until later that I started to think there was something more to his disappearance. As I grew older, I lost interest in the mysteries of our neighborhood. But that house never changed. It stayed the same. It didn't matter how many storms we had, or how badly other houses in the area were damaged. The old mansion remained untouched. The shingles stayed intact. The trees and shrubs kept growing, and the overgrown lawn was still there, just as it had always been. When I returned to my parents' house after college, I hoped, at least, that something had been done with the old place. Maybe someone had bought it and was fixing it up, or maybe it had been torn down. But when I pulled into the driveway, I immediately saw it, the sagging roof, the rusted iron fence, the untamed trees. Nothing had changed. The house was exactly as I had left it, frozen in time. I asked my dad about it once, but he just gave me a vague answer, something like, "It is what it is," and shrugged. There was something in his voice, a weariness, like he'd given up on ever understanding it. My parents both passed away a few years ago. My father was the first to go. He passed away in his sleep after a long battle with illness. A few weeks later, my mother, heartbroken and lost, gave up on life. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and less than a month after my dad's death, I found her lifeless in her bed. I'll always miss them, but I hope they're at peace wherever they are. That's not the reason I'm telling you this, though. They left me the house, along with a mountain of problems. I never realized how much work it would be to maintain a house, especially when you're left alone with it. The bills never stop coming, and it seems like every time I open my mailbox, there's something new that I never expected. It's exhausting. And then there's the problem with the ants. I first noticed them even before my parents passed away. It started at the kitchen window, these huge ants, all marching toward the fridge. I tried everything to get rid of them. Ant traps, sprays, sealing the window shut. It didn't matter. They always found a way in. But these weren't ordinary ants. They were enormous. Some of them looked deformed, like they didn't belong in this world. It started to get to me. I couldn't go into the kitchen anymore without feeling like I was being watched by thousands of little eyes. Lately, I've started to wonder if I know where they're coming from, and I'm afraid that if I don't act soon, things are going to get much worse. Earlier tonight, after a couple of beers and a call with an old friend from school, I found myself thinking about the house again. My friend barely acknowledged it when I mentioned it, but for some reason, it got stuck in my head. Maybe it was the curiosity, or maybe it was just the alcohol, but I decided I needed to see it for myself, get some answers, once and for all. Armed with my phone, a flashlight, and a little liquid courage, I made my way down the road. The night was eerily quiet, and as I got closer to the house, the old fear started creeping back up. But this time, I didn't have anyone telling me to stay away. When I reached the rusted gate, I didn't jump over it like I would have as a kid. Instead, I used the creaky old gate to get inside. Bad choice. The hinges screamed like a dying animal when I pushed it open. The stone pathway was barely visible beneath the thick vines and weeds that had overtaken it. I forced myself to follow it. Avoiding the lawn, something deep inside told me not to step on it. With the flashlight in hand, I swept it over the dead trees, the shrubs, and the overgrown weeds. Everything felt wrong. Even though I was keeping the beam steady, the shadows moved on their own. There was something unnatural about it. The wind rustled through the plants, and the sound was like tiny legs scratching across the ground, making my skin crawl. I made it to the porch. The wood creaked beneath my feet, decayed and rotting from years of neglect. The place smelled faintly of mold and decay. I didn't want to look too closely, but something about it called me forward. I touched the door. The moment I did, it swung open on its own. Inside, it was worse than I could have imagined. The furniture was all alive, crawling with insects, ants, termites, centipedes, and spiders, all writhing in the darkness. The walls were crumbling away, eaten by something I couldn't quite understand. It looked as though the house had been consumed from the inside out. Then something dropped from the doorframe and hit my back. I screamed and lurched forward, my foot landing on the floorboards. It gave way beneath me, and I fell. I tumbled into darkness, barely catching a beam with my hands. The flashlight clattered to the floor below, and as I looked down, I saw them, an army of insects, swarming toward the light. Ants, centipedes, spiders, they were all crawling over each other, desperate to reach the source of light. The flashlight flickered, dimming with a hiss, and then it went out. Tiny legs skittered over my fingers, crawling up my arms, biting into my skin. They were everywhere, crawling in my hair, biting my face, my neck, my ears. I screamed and fought to pull myself free. My hands found the doorframe, and I climbed out, dragging myself back onto the porch. But it didn't end there. I felt them crawling all over me, inside my clothes, under my skin. I scrambled down the steps and hit the grass. But even as I collapsed, I could feel them crawling on me. I ran half naked, panicked, covered in bites. I don't know if anyone saw me, but I didn't care. The ambulance is on its way now. I can't even drive. My body's swollen, my skin covered in welts, and my mind is racing. I've pulled dead ants, ticks, and beetles out of my body. I can barely think straight. Those creatures, those things, are relentless. If I'd fallen into that basement, I wouldn't have made it out alive. The house, it's not a house anymore. It's a nest, a pit. And if I don't do something soon, those things are going to spread. Once I'm out of the hospital, I'll be going back. Not as a visitor, but to burn it down. Everything. And maybe, just maybe, I'll finally feel some peace.